It is my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Hans Hasselbach, Professor of Hematology at Zealand University Hospital, University of Copenhagen, to talk about inflammation in CHIP and MPNs.
Thank you. First of all, many thanks to GATE, to Silva, and to the organizers in the committee for inviting me. It has always been a great pleasure and an honor and a privilege to join you, and so it is today. This is the title of my talk, Inflammation in CHIP and MPNs, Clinical and Therapeutic Aspects. These are my disclosures, and this is my schedule. And I will close my talk by looking into the future. And I will close my talk by describing the future as I see it with CHIP clinics, knowledge hubs, and for preventive medicine. What is actually inflammation? Inflammation is the chronic, age-related, low-grade systemic inflammation associated with aging. And this shows up with elevated levels of various inflammatory cytokines and age-related diseases, and for sure also multimorbidity if we do not intervene with the chronic inflammatory process. The DAC2 mutation is a key mutation in this context. Inflammation gives rise to a multitude of diseases, age-related, and as I told you, due to release of a huge amount of inflammatory cytokines, which we can measure in the blood. Then about CHIP. What is CHIP? CHIP is the precursor stage of myeloid cancer, the precursor stage of your MPN cancers. Before you had the diagnosis, those having the DAC2 mutation have had this mutation for decades, 10, 20, 30 years. And as I shall show you, this matters also in the CHIP stage to have the DAC2 mutation. Actually, the DAC2 mutation, when we look at other traditional risk factors, the DAC2 mutation is equivalent to having overweight, to be a heavy smoker, and other things that we know today threaten our life. The most prevalent of the somatic mutations is not the DAC2 mutations. I will not name them, but just tell you that there are other mutations that are more prevalent than the DAC2 mutation, but the DAC2 mutation is certainly for the whole scene, a very, very important somatic mutation, giving rise to a number of comorbidities in MPNs. This is our MPN inflammation model, telling the story that it starts with low-grade inflammation. The inflammation drives the clone. Therefore, I also address the very important issue that we have to target the chronic inflammation that drives the clone. Not only target in the stem cell, but also the inflammation that drives the diseased stem cell during the biological continuum to the advanced myelofibrosis stage. When saying this, I also tell you that chronic inflammation, and now I look at the background population, not at your diseases, but in the background population, chronic inflammation gives rise to early development of atherosclerosis, to blood clot formation, and actually to virtually all cancers. Patients, MPN patients, are multimorbidity patients if untreated. If we do not target the malignant clone, if we do not target the chronic inflammatory state. Therefore, it requires interdisciplinary collaboration. I shall not sit in my office in the Department of Hematology. I shall go out and knock at the doors to Department of Neurology, Department of Cardiology, and others to work with them. Will you play with us to have concern about our lovely patients? And certainly I will show you they will. MPNs are inflammatory diseases. They are actually a human inflammation model for cancer development. This is a paper that I have the privilege to write together with Andrew Schaefer and Elvers, telling that also in the chip stage, there is a chronic inflammatory drive, giving rise to activated white blood cells, activated platelets, activated endothelial cells, all this giving rise to the huge morbidity in your disease, namely blood clots. Let me then go back to the Danish experience about CHIP and about MPNs. And I will concentrate, CHIP, it is so many other somatic mutations, but I will concentrate on two, DIAC2 and CALR, and mainly DIAC2, because this is the most prevalent. We made a large study years ago, published in Blood, where we screened 20,000 citizens in the so-called Næstved cohort from 2010 to 2013, and now we have them in again. And here we have them in our CHIP clinic after 7 to 10 years, and I can tell you that a huge number of those having CHIP in 2010 to 2013, they are now diagnosed with MPNs. And we diagnose them much earlier than they otherwise would be diagnosed, because remember, your diseases, you have had elevated blood cell counts for years before you have had the diagnosis. And that is important. And that is why I so much underscore the urgent need of CHIP clinics. I will come back to it. In Denmark, we have actually 10,000 patients with undiagnosed MPNs with elevated blood cell counts. In your country, many, many more. And 150,000 citizens in Denmark carry the DIAC2 mutation, the thrombogenic mutations. What happens then? Some will keep it down, low burden DIAC2, that is the green line. Some will gradually increase. And what we go into is to try to isolate the determined factors for clonal expansion, evolution, and development of MPNs. Many. Smoking. Do not smoke. Also, try to keep down your weight. I can tell you these are very strong signals in our CHIP cohort. So just to repeat, DIAC2 promotes atherosclerosis, giving rise to heart disease, heart failure, and actually also aneurysms, dilatation of the large vessel in the abdomen and the breast, and I will come back to this. CHIP, MPN, and multimorbidities, inflammation are driving all these, and therefore we have totally to change our attitude. We have to focus on novel preventive strategies, meaning screening high-risk MPN profile patients for the most prevalent mutation, the DIAC2. Earlier diagnosis of MPNs and associated comorbidities, earlier treatment of MPNs and associated comorbidities, for the simple reason that we have a drug, interferon alpha, that is highly efficacious and safe. We have shown this the last 30 years. So, to keep in mind, the DIAC2 mutation promotes atherosclerosis, and we have to target that mutation. And now to our experience with the DIAC2 and CALR mutation in our large cohort. Recently published in Journal of Internal Medicine, and a great credit to all my co-workers and Morten Kranke Larsen for this very, very great work. To put it shortly, to have a DIAC2 mutation below 1% matters. Here you see the distribution in the first patients that we in our outpatient clinic, but just to tell you that a large proportion of these patients, they have now MPN, diagnosed 10 to 20 years earlier than otherwise diagnosed. They are on treatment. Which treatment? stem cell targeted therapy with interferon alpha. And it is much more easy to treat a cancer when it is with the minimal tumor burden, and that is the reason why we have to catch them before they develop all of the comorbidities. All-cause mortality is increased in those harboring the DAC2 mutation, and also the mortality is increased due to ischemic heart disease. And now my key message. ChIP-JAK2, when I say this, it is because the definition of ChIP is what is above 2%. And we challenge this concept by the DAC2 mutation because it matters to have a ChIP-JAK2 below 1%. The risk of developing MPN is 33 times increased. If you have ChIP, and ChIP is you have only the mutation without elevated cell counts. And if you have it above 1%, the risk of developing MPN within 7 to 10 years is 721 times increased. So to set up a ChIP clinic will save so many lives and patients, I am sure. Actually, we are only looking at the top of the iceberg. There are a lot below the iceberg, below the surface. Then a few words about other risk factors in the background population: white blood cell count and platelet count. You know that you have your disease because you have elevated blood cell counts. But what do elevated blood cell counts do in the background population? I learned in the school that it doesn't matter. This is not correct. It matters. And Danish colleagues have shown this recently. I will come back to this. But just telling you that the white blood cell count and the platelet count are deeply involved in the process of atherothrombosis, blood clot formation. And Danish colleagues have shown that there is high neutrophil blood cell count, white blood cell count, is a causal risk factor for atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. I didn't know this 10 years ago. Now I know it for sure, and the same holds true for elevated platelet counts. And this is just what they have shown, that I said, that high platelet counts and high hematocrit also associate with arterial thrombosis in the general population. What about smoking then? Smoking is also a huge inflammatory drive. And smoking actually, JAK2 induces a chronic inflammatory state equivalent to heavy smoking. And we have shown this in several reports. So earlier diagnosis of MPN and MPN-associated comorbidities in high-risk MPN profile patients will improve our understanding of the pathogenic mechanisms for ChIP to MPN development. And here we have our focus in our ChIP clinic. The first we did was to knock at the doors to the Department of Neurology. And a PhD by Marie Velblom, lovely defended, showing that 11.2% of ischemic stroke patients harbor the DAC2 mutation. Several have undiagnosed MPN. They are now in my outpatient clinic being treated with interferon. And as I will come back to, also a statin. What about aneurysms? That is dilatation of the large artery in the abdomen and in the breast. And in mice, it has been shown that JAK2 mutation promotes aortic aneurysms. This gave the impetus for us to screen 8,000 Danish citizens in the DANCAVA study, showing that 16.2% of those having ascending aortic aneurysms harbor the DAC2 mutation, and several with undiagnosed MPN. That is actually to tell us it should be introduced as a routine test, just as blood glucose, just as blood cholesterol. You should have a JAK2 mutation in this patient cohort as well as in ischemic stroke cohort. So just to repeat, JAK2 mutation promotes atherosclerosis. We have shown this in another PhD thesis, but also the most important visual disturbance in the Western world for blindness, age-related macular degeneration, is a chronic inflammatory disease. And actually, age-related AMD is much more prevalent amongst patients with MPN. So please, if you have visual disturbances, then contact an eye doctor and let him see at your retina. Also, osteoporosis development is associated likely to MPNs for the simple reason that my good colleagues in Denmark have shown that fractures are frequent amongst patients with MPNs, and you know, fractures may be due to osteoporosis, and osteoporosis is inflammation-driven. So we have the hypothesis that JAK2 mutation may promote osteoporosis as well, and we set up a large study, again a screening study, of 1,500 Danish osteoporosis patients to show the prevalence in this cohort as well. Actually, the somatic mutation DNMT3A may have a particular role in accelerated bone loss and frailty. What about chronic nephropathy then? I love to compare type 2 MPNs with type 2 diabetes mellitus. Here you have elevated blood sugar, and elevated blood sugar gives rise to visual disturbances, ischemic heart disease, peripheral arterial insufficiency, to osteoporosis, and to all this. In your disease, it is elevated cell counts. We couldn't dream not to normalize elevated blood sugar. Never. That should be the future for you, to normalize your elevated blood cell counts as well. Also, recurrent infections may drive the clone, actually. And that is also a very hot research topic for the moment. So, MPNs, also perhaps in the chip stage, a human inflammation model and a human inflammation model for cancer development. Unfortunately, you have an increased risk of second cancers. And if you are hit by the second cancer, your prognosis is inferior to the same cancer in the background population. So the doctors, the MPN doctors, my colleagues, should really be should notice this and have focus upon it. It may be due to defective tumor immune surveillance, and also, of course, premature atherosclerosis development during the course of chronic inflammation. But I will come back to this in a moment. What about the elevated blood cell counts? I have learned for years, and I'm certainly not the one that say this today, because I think that we should normalize elevated blood cell counts. We should not just watch and wait. I will give you a simple example. Elevated blood platelets, if you are hit by a cancer, the platelet will lay as a shelter around the tumor cells and protect them against the immune cells. That is just one reason. There are several for lowering the platelet count. Also, the platelets aggregate with an immune cell called T cells, and these T cells, then they are defective. So having a normal cell count, then you will have less T cell suppression than if you have an elevated blood cell counts. Chronic liver disease is actually prevalent amongst patients with MPN. I didn't know that for 5 or 10 years ago. And actually there are not much focus upon it, but some have side effects to interferon, and it is our preliminary experience that many of them, they have liver steatosis then. Future research directions focusing on determined factors for clonal expansion and evolution in the chip stage towards MPNs. Stem cell targeted therapy even in the chip stage. We are setting up a study where we treat some of our JAK2 positive patients in the chip JAK2 stage. to see if we actually may be able to eliminate the clone at that stage. So the Danish MPN Consortium is an interdisciplinary and translational research program on the path towards minimal residual disease and actually, as we also heard previously from Ron Hoffman, cure in MPNs. A profound change in clinical practice with watch and wait to an active preventive medicine approach. Target the malignant clone, target the concurrent inflammatory state and the inflammation-mediated comorbidities. Here's the first patient ever in my outpatient clinic being treated with interferon. And he's now off interferon. He's 83 years old and have not had interferon for 10 years. He's have minimal residual disease. I monitor thrice yearly with JAK2, and he's below 1 or from 1 to 5%. Early treatment with interferon alpha is also cost effective. We have shown this in mathematical modeling studies with great colleagues at Roskilde University Center, and we are very thankful for that. This is the figure to the left is from our last DALIR trial, trying to show how nicely the JAK2 goes down during interferon treatment. So it is cost effective. You can start with watch and wait. We know what happens then. It's not good. We can give them interferon, and then we have the possibility to lower the disease activity for long term. So quelling the fire, the inflammation, aging in the earliest disease stage, prohibit clonal evolution, stop the fuel supply by interferon alpha, and then anti-inflammation. And how can we perform anti-inflammation? We can do it with very expensive drugs like JAK2 inhibitors. But what about statins? Just to repeat, interferon targets JAK2 and may actually then also prohibit atherosclerosis development. We shall show this in the future, of course. We have not the data yet. Interferon will also normal-regulate, down-regulated, or deregulated oxidative stress genes. And actually, interferon will do something that is very important because the white blood cell counts, they produce a very blood clot promoting factor called neutrophil extracellular trap formation, a very difficult word, just call it NETs. And what does interferon? Interferon lowers NETs in MPNs. That is shown in our DALIR trial. Interferon also favorably impact deregulated atherosclerosis genes in PV and related neoplasms. And very importantly, interferon tends to normalize the microbiome in MPNs. Also, interfering with inflammatory aging and the chronic inflammatory state. And then, what about statins then? Statins are potently anti-proliferative, they are potently anti-angiogenic and pro-apoptotic, all these anti-cancer effects. It inhibits release of pro-inflammatory cytokines. What more can we want? It inhibits white blood cell count activation and platelet activation. Lovely. Statins inhibit JAK2-dependent cell growth, and statins enhance JAK2/1/2 inhibition. Statins inhibit a pathway in the cell called mevalonate pathway. And this is a very important issue because then statins also dampened a lot of disease processes in MPNs. And therefore, I think that today, last year when I was so happy to be with you, I was asked, what hands should we go on a statin? And I say, I don't know. Today, I will tell you, it is prime time for the use of statins in MPNs. Last call after 20 years, since I wrote about it in 2006, and now we know today that statins also reduces cancer-related mortality by 15%. So there's a lot of meaning with that. Statins enhance, and that is just recently published in Blood Advances by one of my PhD students, Isabella, that statins enhance the efficacy of interferon in MPNs. It also being combined with bisphosphonate for osteoporosis, then it may have a synergism in that way. And this is the first patient treated with this combination, a single case report. Unfortunately, we have not had the possibility to set up a large study, but just a single report. Then I want just to credit Josef Prahl from Utah, and soon their lovely paper will be online, showing that patients with interferon side effects, they actually benefit from combination therapy with metformin. I will come back to this later, we can discuss it. Just a few words about combination therapy. This is my lovely Pia, the first patient in the world being treated with interferon plus Ruxo because she didn't tolerate interferon. This gave, and now she is healthy, JAK2, 1-2%, normal cell counts, virtually normal cell bone marrow, and off therapy for 5 years now. Disrupt the vicious circle, disrupt the vicious inflammatory circle by early intervention using stem cell targeted therapy with interferon and non-expensive drug like a statin. This lovely story about Pia gave the impetus to treat 50 patients intolerant to interferon with combination interferon and Ruxo. I can tell you that it worked perfectly. It worked perfectly, and I look at Gate and colleagues, lovely colleagues, because we saw it in our Danish study. But that is really science when it is so lovely, because you did a study in your clinic, and what did you see? I will just come back to the Combi1 and Silver's wonderful editorial, and also the combination therapy with Klaus doing an Ironman on this combination therapy. And that is my lovely Mette, secretary. But then, what happened? Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. Simply because my lovely colleagues here at this place showed just the opposite. And that is fantastic, because then, of course, we have, as you concluded, we have to do the randomized trial, of course. But I can tell you that we also had treated newly diagnosed PV patients with this combination, and they do perfectly well. So I think there's something about it. What about the future otherwise? Early intervention, monoclonal anti-IL-1 beta antibody therapy to break the vicious circle. When I use this very expensive drug, it is because it has been shown to reduce the risk of second myocardial infarction in those having the first myocardial infarction. So it is on the scene. So to treat with this antibody, even in the chip stage, might be the future. To prohibit the vicious circle, and possibly in combination with interferon. And now I will close my talk. And I will not close my talk without saying the very, very, very important thing, even I think, personally, the most important thing. You have to take care of yourself. You have to have a healthy lifestyle. And we as doctors, we have to knock at the doors to all our lovely colleagues, cardiologists, neurologists, etc., gastroenterologists, and to find patients much earlier than later. Healthy anti-inflammatory lifestyle. This is Peter, 83 years old today, in a few days, 84. Biking, Danish championship in rowing, and on interferon, low burden. JAK2 is 20, but he has totally normal cell counts. But he has done so many wonderful things in life, and he's 83 years on interferon. So my final slides, I will show you that interferon is also for the elderly. Combination, not only therapies, also disciplines. And how can we combine disciplines? We can combine disciplines in the powerhouse of preventive medicine, and that is the CHIP clinics. Knowledge hubs to study CHIP to MPN transition, the personalized blueprint of chronic inflammation in health to disease transition. A multidisciplinary platform where we catch the patients much earlier and follow them in the window, in the time window, with half-yearly blood cell counts and JAK2. Some may have low JAK2, and then we can follow them once yearly. But someday they come with one elevated cell counts, and then we do a bone marrow biopsy, and then we look into a new bone marrow. The hematopathologists have not seen it, because this is not full-blown MPN. It is subtle changes in the megakaryocyte morphology, in the precursor cells to blood platelets, in the mother cells to MPNs. So that will be the future. And now I will repeat my message, my key message today. CHIP JAK2 below 1% matters. So the CHIP clinic as the catalyst of preventive medicine, that is the future. And I really hope we had a large grant of 11.4 million Danish crowns from Novo Nordisk Foundation to set up the first CHIP clinic in Denmark. I really hope that you will set up a CHIP clinic here and all over the world, and I would be happy to collaborate with you, and you can take learning of our mistakes in our first months in our CHIP clinic. It works perfectly well, and I can only say, do it. The future looks bright also for the elderly. Here you have Peter, 83 years old, 10 years ago, severely ill with blood clots in the lungs, and now he's doing fantastic. Here is Peter Bongadjong, Queenstown, New Zealand, March 2033. So please, age is not a barrier for anything. Love it. Acknowledgement to all the colleagues being on board this journey. Thanks to all my national colleagues, thanks to all you here in the from abroad, and all my PhD student and postdoc, and not least, thanks so much to Pia and the dream of the new horizon, minimal residual disease and cure. The future looks bright. Thank you very much for your attention.